If your dream does not scare you, then you need to dream again. You know why? Because you have greatness in you. Do you know that you can do more than what you are doing right now? You might be a medical doctor, you might be a professor, you might even be a bishop, you can even be a head of state or head of, president of a country. Or you can still do more than that because you have greatness in you, because you can do all things, because you have gifts that you have not recognized yet, because you have a book in you to write. Your voice, the world is waiting for. They want to hear from you. They want to see your creativity. So that is why I'm telling you that you have a lot that is still in your storehouses that needs to be bring out.
Please visit us on YYCI.tv YouTube channel to learn more, to watch most of our videos from our events, and also be transformed, your mindset and your life and your relationship. Every of our events, including my own inspirational nugget of wisdom, is right there waiting for you to watch. And also subscribe to that YouTube channel and also share it with your friends and family. Relationship matters in everything we do. Surround yourself with like-minded people and your association matters. Elizabeth Lucas Afolalu. So let me use this time to quickly encourage you. If you have if you want to read more about most of our books that we've written in YYCI, please visit www.amazon.com or amazon.co.uk or YesYouCanInternational.com, YesYouCanInternational by Elizabeth.com, elizabethcreations.co.uk, and encourage yourself to grab as many books as you can read and inspire others to do so and transform your lives, renew your mindset for a better change for tomorrow. YYCI is a place of a mastering mindset and transformation. So we are going straight to our next speaker, our great trainer, our great leader, my own mentor from India, Professor G.C. Kavitha, where she's going to be sharing with us on a very important topic as well, to unite leaders, both old and young. And I believe that message is actually for me personally, because that is what YYCI International stands for. But let me quickly read more about our next speaker. The Professor Dr. Goan Gotavaran Chengala Kavitha is an internationally acclaimed inspirational speaker known as the Happiness Woman, positive psychologist, psychotherapist, psychometric test professional, teacher trainer, QPR gatekeeper trainer for suicide prevention. Wow. Social activist for world peace and happiness. Have counseled 31 to 65,000 women and adolescents till March 2022. You can imagine we are now in 2023, so that figures must be increased by now. Voluntarily on happiness under the title, Happiness is Your Birthright. Oh yes, I'm ready to listen to that. She has an honorary position, Vice President of ISRA India, editorial board member of Raptor Magic Prapodini, practical supported by Indian Council of Social Science Research, ICSSR. He's also an international president of Department of Health Success World, where I also am a member of Success World, run by our dear matron, Queen Nadia Ariari, and King of Hawaii Island 2019. Our professor is also the Central Team National Coordinator, Wellness for India Cohen Action Network, ICANN. She is also the project head for SWAM Wedna, a collaborative initiative of ICANN and NCPCR. So permit me this morning or this afternoon or this evening, wherever you are, to invite our great leader. I must tell you something. I must confess to you, all my audience. This lady is everything, and she's very, very busy. I ought to be on the queue for a long time to get her to come and join us. So let us not take it for granted. I also have a secret for you. Do you know that right now, she has already traveled to America. So she's in USA right now. So please sit tight and let us grab everything she needs to share with us today. And guess what? Even though the topic that she's sharing with us today is on uniting the young and the old together. But I will give you the secret. She's a woman, an expert in happiness. I believe the whole world needs to listen to her because she has the secret to become or to have happiness in your life. If you want to be happy, this is the time to listen to the lady that is expert in that area. She's also a psychologist. She's a professor. She's everything. So are you ready? Please pick up your pen and paper and jot something down. But let me remind you, please, write your questions down. You cannot let her go without answering your questions. I'm sure you are pondering, you'll be pondering, your questions will be floating into your mind. If you want to grow your mindset, this is the way. So ask your questions and also comment on it. Let us feel the way you've enjoyed and you've also learned from this. You can even summarize it for some other people that will join us. Next thing else, share this link and invite your family and friends to Yes You Can International Facebook Masterclass, because no knowledge is waste and knowledge is powerful. So allow me to invite Professor Dr. Kavitha to our stage now. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, dear Queen Ambassador, Professor Elizabeth, and the beautiful audience here. It's my honor, absolute honor, and thank you so much for all the kind words that you put across for me. And it's my honor and privilege to represent YCCA for a masterclass. The topic that I've chose today to talk about is uniting the old and the young leaders under the relationships and leadership. I like to start my session with a very interesting study that's been conducted in Amsterdam. A team of psychological scientists, like when they try to understand the unconscious biases that we have while choosing a leader based on the age. They studied on 900 samples. They studied that when they have shown the face of a young leader, a leader who was more youthful in appearance, then they have connected them to the innovativeness. And when they have shown the pictures of an older person, they have connected more to the stability and conservativeness. So from this study, like, the question now arises, does age really affect the leadership role? That's a very important question that we need to ponder over. Does age really affect the leadership role? Okay. Before I go ahead answering this question, I like to give out an example, the example of a very well-known activist of youth who raises awareness about climate change through her very popular to her popular speeches to the political leaders, the older and the younger generation. She's none other than the Greta Thunberg, who talks about the climate change. And guess what? She's just 18 years old. We are talking about an 18-year-old lady, okay, who's creating awareness, who calls herself an activist at such an young age, and she's not even seen the world much. So I come back to my question again. Does age affect the leadership role? If we have to really look into it, the kind of the stereotype and the unconscious bias that we have developed, that the young leaders, we can correlate the young leaders to innovativeness and the older leaders to more stable and then more conservative and more traditional in their approach. The answer to my question comes in. Age doesn't really matter if the person has the right qualities and experience. Age doesn't really matter, because we just spoke about an 18-year-old who creates awareness across the globe about the climate change. So what else does it matter, and where does it matter? Okay. Age does too play a role in leadership effectiveness. And probably down the talk, I'm not showing any presentation because I'm more a kind of an oratory person. I like to talk just like that. I like to quote examples and talk, and that's my style of taking up a class. So age, definitely, we have to really admit the fact that age do play a role in leadership effectiveness. So what do I really mean by that? I will answer that question somewhere in between. Before that, let us talk about the most gravest global challenges that we are facing today. Maybe I'll list out probably 6 challenges that we are facing today as one of the very big challenges across, and we are trying really hard to work on it. Probably the first one to call for is the climate change that has come because of the increase in temperatures because of the carbon emissions. And we're talking about the water contamination, which has come because of the pollution, poverty, inadequate resources. And there has been very alarming statistics that state that 2.1 billion people across the world lack access to getting quality water. We are talking about the human rights violation. We have just heard the previous speaker talking about how the gender equality and how the gender equity really harness and harms the human rights violation. We're talking about the global health. Very recently, we have witnessed the pandemic. And many other environmental factors, that lead to the global health. We are talking about the poverty which has come because of the marginalization. We are talking about these global issues. So my question here comes in: has these come from this generation, or has it been spanning over the generations? This is the question that I think we need to really ponder about. If you have to really look back and then check into the causes and the reasons for all these global challenges that we are facing today, it's no surprise to know that these are the problems that have been spanning over the generations. This is not a problem of this is not a problem of the 20th century. This is not a problem that has come in 19th century. This is a problem that has been spanning over the generations. So this is where today's my topic comes into picture. What is the need to unite the old and the young leaders? And is there a real need? That is something I think we need to really understand. We need to really think about. We need to ponder about. As I told you, I strongly believe that there is so much that every person learns from each other, as we keep hearing this from our ambassador Queen Professor Elizabeth, that we all learn from each other. It's not that, just a person knows everything under the sun. There is a consistent learning that keeps happening over the time, and it keeps happening every moment as we are conversing with people, or as we are conversing with ourselves as well. Okay, there is a learning that keeps happening across. So a collaboration and a mutual understanding, definitely between the generations, I strongly believe, will lead to innovation in solving the complex problems. That's what I mentioned now, the global challenges that we are facing today, because this is not something that just started. It's been spanning over the generations. So the old leaders and the young leaders, there is a strong reason why they need to be united, because only when they are united, the innovations can really happen. The innovations can happen in solving this complex problems that we are facing right now. And there has been a logic, that because earlier days, it used to be thought that leadership only happens one way, from the older to the younger generation. Reason why, if you have to really ponder over what is the reason that it happens only from older to the younger generation, that we understand it very clearly, that because the older generation has already experienced the problems, and they have known how the problems arise, and they have seen the failures, and they know where the failures come from. So we feel that the wisdom what they have gained over the time can be a good resource for the younger generation to really learn. So if you have to get back again, if you have to really get back again, what's that the older generation, and there is a stereotype, or a stereotype thought process, wherein we are all hardwired to think that leadership is something that is only learned one way, from the older to the younger generation. So keeping this at for a moment, there was a very beautiful survey that has been done among the older leaders and the younger leaders to understand what is that they're not able to really tolerate, or they're not able to really understand about the other generation. When this question was asked to the younger leaders about the older leaders, they have come out with very, very, very interesting instances. They said that the leaders who are old in age, they are not ready for change, because they're so much stuck in their own way they have been implementing for the past 25, 30 years, with tons of blind spots. Trust me, it's not one or two, with tons of blind spots, and no willingness to listen, or to learn, or to correct. Okay, this is something that the information given by the younger generation on the older generation. Okay, and they're not willing to let go of their learning, which they have been implementing for the past 20, 30 years. And they are highly inflexible. They're not ready to open for a change, and they're not quite accommodated. They're quite intolerant about the changes that are happening across. Okay, and they're too slow. Okay, and this is something that the younger generation has given their thoughts on the older generations, older leaders. When the same question was posed on to the older leaders, the older leaders felt the young leaders are quite lazy, and they're not focused, right? With the smartphones in hand, the focus keeps shifting. They're quite diverting themselves. They are not focused on a particular task. So completing a task is not that wow. Okay, and there's so much on technology that the emotional element of human connection somewhere is lost. They've lost on the human relationship somewhere. This is the feeling of the older generation or the newer ones. Okay, and they and the older generation also felt that the younger generation think they are quite an expert, because for everything under the sun, the solution comes from Google or something else. There is always a solution from there, and they don't really value the experience. This was another thought process from the old leaders. They felt that the young leaders don't really value the experience. Okay, and the old leaders felt they're too fast. They're pretty fast, and they're not really open. They're not patient to complete a task. And they also felt that the ethical values, which are important part of growing an organization, is somewhere lost. So if you can see, I can now give you a reason why we need to unite the old leaders and the new leaders. because there are a lot of differences. There are a lot of differences that have not just come because it's something. There is a difference in the technology. There is a difference in the lifestyle. There is a difference in the way they live. There is a difference in diversity in the values, the diversity in the belief systems, the wide diversity in the ethical principles, like what has been followed to what it is now. This difference definitely has divided the older and the younger generation. This definitely has divided the older and younger generation. And now, if I have to really go back to my question, why do we really need to unite the old and the young leaders? What is the need? What is the need to really unite the old and the young leaders? Probably, I like to give another example from the Lego toys. Most of you would have heard about the Lego building blocks. This Lego Toys is a company that's been established in 1932 in Denmark. They started with the wooden toys, and in 1949, they have invented the building blocks in 1949. In 1978, I'm giving these timelines for you all to understand how the old wisdom and the new energy can really bring in and sustain an organization and can really solve the complex problems, with the innovative thoughts. In 1978, the Lego patent, what they have acquired to construct these toys has expired. We're talking from 1949 to 1978. This time gap, people already knew, the competitors already knew in the market that this is the way, and children are going crazy building the blocks, and there is a creativity, and it also serves an educational purpose along with an entertainment purpose. So people don't keep quiet. The moment they got to understand that the particular patent has expired, they immediately started getting the duplicate products into the market. And Lego, in fact, the Lego company in Denmark has started seeing huge losses because there were competitors, there were people coming up with imitation products of what they are, and probably they added a little more color and value addition to it, and probably they have started growing and growing better. So this is where the young leaders have come into picture. In 1979, probably, they started the innovating team, the young leaders, like were quite energetic, enthusiastic, active, and pretty innovative in their approach. They just started discussing their ideas with the old leaders, who've been with the company for quite a long time. And they said, this is what has happened, so what do we do now? Then the young team struck back. It went in and it spoke, and it took the franchise of Star Wars. And they started creating Harry Potter, Spider-Man. And I need not mention the success of it to you now. Definitely need not mention the success of it. And after that, probably they have built around 150 short films on YouTube, which become super duper popular all over. So they gain back the market they have lost. So we are talking about a 100-year-old company where the young generation has been collaborating with the old leaders, trying to bring the innovations and taking the wisdom from the older generation, taking the experiences and the failure experiences from the older generation, going together and finally sustaining the product in the market. This is just an example of one thing. So if you can imagine, as I mentioned, the climate change problems, the water contamination, the human rights violation, which has come because of patriarchal societies. And we are talking about the global health issues. We are talking about the poverty, which is coming because of the marginalization and inequality. We are talking about all these things, which has not just come now. This has been spanning over the generations. As a new generation, if I just think about what is happening now, probably we might not come to a very collaborative solution that can be more a global solution. Probably we only think about this generation, this problem. So uniting the older and the newer generation plays a vital role, because the problems whatsoever is created is not something that we have created just now. It's been spanning over the generations. Because certain things have not been looked upon, or certain things have not been worked upon, because certain people were not involved, because there is a general feeling that as the people grow older, they don't have enough energy. They are not technologically advanced, and they're not that kind of super active in the market to really sustain their products. Because of this, the older generations are put away, the younger generation gets into the market. Younger generation, the knowledge, the essence of how the things work is very much limited to their generation. They are really not aware what has happened earlier. Why is history so important? Why do we read history at schools? I give a very simple reason. What is the reason for reading history at school? Why do we need to do that? Why is the subject history introduced in the schools? For each country, there is a history that a child learns till the schooling age, till the middle school. Why is it being done? Why does a child do that? The reason being because unless until we know the history, there is a strong reason. We know how we have evolved. We know which are the errors that we are not supposed to commit. We know what is that we learn from our experience, because when it is read as a subject, it becomes a model. We know what has to be done, what need not be done. What was the innovative thought that has really taken us to what we are today? So the old and the new has to be united always, because we restrict the age of a person to 60 years, 65 years, and then we say that, come on, your job is over, you are now retiring, and let the new generation come into picture. But what we are losing out in this context is the basic wisdom and the experience that has been gained over the years, wherein we don't connect the dots. Because what we fail to understand, anything in this world are all connected through different dots. And we only check into the last dots and we connect the dots and we try to bring in a solution wherein we fail to connect the earlier dots. And to connect the earlier dots, we do need the experience and wisdom of the older generation. So it is high time that we bring back the wisdom of the old. We bring back the wisdom of the old, and we bring the energy of the youth. We bring the innovativeness of the youth together to really sustain our societies, to really sustain the globe. That's very important, because we don't want another generation to sit down and wail over that we still have a problem with climate, we still have a problem over gender inequalities, we still have a problem with gender equities, we still have a problem with property, we still have a problem with water contamination. Let's not talk about it. I think we had enough experience of all that. We've been already facing too much of it. It is time that we join together the old wisdom, the old experience, the old mistakes, the old things, putting together with the new energy and the new experiences, the new innovativeness, bringing together and ensuring that there is a holistic solution to the problems that we are facing right now. Because looking at one side of the problem would never give out a solution, definitely give out a solution. I'll also give one other beautiful example. Earlier days, when the family structure in most of the countries was a joint family system, you can definitely check into the statistics. The number of depression cases was pretty low. Why was it low? There was somebody to state that I am there for you. You're not lonely in your life. I am there for you. There was an emotional support that was being given. As the families started becoming nuclear families, as the people started working and the kind of quality time being spent with the children has reduced and the competitiveness and the technology has increased, the children, the teens, especially the teens, have started feeling so lonely. Despite living in a family of 3 or 2 or whatever the reasons are, still they started feeling lonely. And I'm talking this exclusively about the joint family structures, which has now been translated into nuclear family structures. I'm giving a specific example of that. So this is where the people started, the number of depression cases and the number of suicidal cases have definitely increased. So, but we think that we started thinking that a joint family system probably doesn't give the privacy, to the couple. It doesn't give the privacy. There is kind of responsibility that is needed. But what the generations have failed to understand, the wisdom, the hope, and what can be given to the child cannot be given by both the parents if they're working equally. So there has to be somebody, some elder person, some wisdom that needs to be translated to the child to state that I'm there for you. I'm there for you. So when we have to really look into it, anywhere, any place, any situation, if the relationships have to be maintained, if the organizations have to grow, if there has to be a sustainable development at all the areas, it's so important that the old wisdom and the new energy has to be together. So it's so important. It's so important to state that the old leaders and the new leaders have to be together to really solve the problems. And let me also tell you that to facilitate the problem solving process, because old leaders have empathy, they have active listening skills. They patiently sit down, they can listen to it, they can listen to the solution, they can come out with the idea. The new generation can collaborate and take it along, and they're impartial. Impartial. When I say impartial, I don't say that they don't have biases. They do have biases, but they have the wisdom to control the biases, because they can see problem as a problem. They don't see their personal opinion as a problem. They have an ability to see the problem as a problem, and they can control their biases. Despite having the biases, still they can be impartial because they can have an emotional control. And older generation, when you really look into the younger generation leaders, they're more competitive by nature, they're more competitive by attitude, because most of them think, how do I stand different from others? And in this aspect of trying to stand differently, what they miss out, what they lose out is collaborations. And older leaders do understand the importance of collaborations, because they know very well that the solutions can be brought in just not with one person. It should be brought along with the teams. It's brought with collaborations. And the older generation, if you notice, they expect the nuances that can happen in the whole system. They know where the things can go wrong. They know how the things can go wrong. They know why the person is responding that way or reacting that way. They know how to bring back that. So I like to end my talk with the thought that it's pretty important to really have a beautiful amalgamation of the old wisdom and the new energy, new innovativeness. But it is so important that old leaders do need to be pretty cautious that they are not biased, because most of the old leaders with a kind of 30-40 years experience, they think they know everything, and they think they are right and they can never go wrong. Okay, because they really can't understand the problems of new days generation, because they overlook it. They say, this was not a problem when I was saying, and why is it a problem now? Why is it a problem now? So it's so important that both of them stand together, sit together, and solve the global problems together, to ensure that the older generation, the older leaders being together, give the space to the younger leaders to really take it way across. And the younger leaders allow them to listen, to experience, to do it, and the older leaders don't judge them. Don't judge them. They need to give out a chance, because older leaders mostly cannot take a chance. The risk-taking factor eventually reduces, because that is something they try to play quite safe as you grow older. So it's so important that they understand this, and give the space where the younger generation is ready to take a risk, where they're ready to take challenges, where they're ready to take the innovations. So it's so important that a beautiful amalgamation of the old and the young leaders together can really, really solve most of the problems. And I end my talk emphasizing the fact that both are equally important. And age doesn't define leadership, but age does to define leadership effectiveness, because I probably would like to be on a lighter side. Not that everybody who grows old is wiser. I always state this, a 16-year-old moron is still a moron at 60, but still an old moron, that's it. So a person, the qualities, the capabilities, the abilities that are more important. Age alone doesn't define anything. It is more the qualities, ability, and at the same time, I don't say that age is not everything. Age definitely has its own advantages. So it's important that as people, as responsible citizens of the globe, it is important for us to understand the problem not as a problem of now, to understand the problem, the beginning of the problem from where it has started, because most of the problems has a very long-standing issues starting and spreading through span of generations. So it's important that let's all sit together to understand the problem in a holistic dimension, and to really solve the problem as a problem, and just not be so biased on that I'm right and you're right. So thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity, and it's such a pleasure talking to you all. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Very, very interesting topic, interesting presentation, insight into this great important topic that you've shared with us today. Really, I'm speechless, because you've said it all. Because it's like you, Professor Kavitha, presenting to us all the actually meaning of what YYC is doing, because it's really it gives us the better understanding of, because sometimes we might be doing some things and we don't know why we're doing it, but you sharing with us today, it makes us to understand it much better, that that is why we're doing what we're doing. So you enlighten us, you inspire us, you let us to know much better so that we can do more of what we're doing. And I want to say thank you so much. Thank you so much. I can see all the comments here. Yes, they're listening. And yes, amazing observation. It's very, very good. And I wish you can elaborate more on this elaboration, I believe, because you just want to meet up the time. But then, if you can permit us, we can ask some questions.
Sure,
When you
please.
say that we can observe, we need to observe the differences between the old and the new. I mean, the old and the young generation. What other things that do you want to tell us? Well, for us to watch out, because sometimes we don't know it all and we are all learning every day, but there's still some few things that we need to know, so that, because it's one thing to say what you've said, but we are in the process of transformation. We want to take action immediately. You've spoken to us because you have woken us up. You have enlightened us to know the difference, to know the importance of the difference between the old and the young, and how it is very important that both old and the young should come together, collaborate together for the sustainable development, which is, I think that is very important, because coming from where I come from, or where everybody's come from, or where we were grown up from, you will agree with me that we don't give chance for the young ones. Number one, we don't believe they have common sense or they have ideas. Then number two, we want to feel pompous that we are their leaders. What do they know? But what you don't understand is that God can also empower the youth to do something as great as the young ones. Sometimes we have all the wisdom. Sometimes we have all the wisdom, the knowledge. Yes, we have all the experiences. But I believe that even our experience was birth. Our experience was created from our mistakes that we made.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So all our experiences were from our mistakes that we learned.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And what we were there is for us to now bring our wisdom, our experience that needs more energy, especially in this 21st century. Somebody said it about a few months ago during our our conference, and I think he just reminded us as well. He said, we give experience, wisdom. The youth, we need them to give us the energy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, so we need each other. So a little questions I just want to ask. I hope I haven't missed out the question. Did you get the question? So the question is, what can we look out for? What can we observe between that we can develop, or we can improve on, in terms of the differences between the youth? What are we doing that is wrong? Maybe I'll put it that way, either from the youth side or the older side. Can you put a light in that?
Yeah, I believe that the biggest problem that's creating a tough between the old and the young generation is like the first thing, like, because the older generation, with the kind of overprotectiveness on the children, trying to protect their children, First thing, they are not allowing them to take decisions. That's very important, because most of the times it is the parent. I'm talking about a case of India, case of few Asian countries where there is a very closed family culture, where the families are intact and they are pretty close with each other. So a child is not given the opportunity to take a decision, with the belief that a child might go wrong. The child, because they don't have any other intention. The intent is very clear. They don't want the child to fail anywhere. I think the most important thing that I feel all the older leaders should understand: failure. We need to allow the younger generation to experiment with their ideas, to experiment with the thought process, to experiment, and to allow them to make decisions. They might fail, so what? Because a failure makes them a better person. Nobody has become a stronger person without failures. Everybody has become strong. Every great leader has definitely faced failures in life. Because success, the strength comes from failures. And people, because they want to be very protective, they want to do everything, and everything is given intact. They don't want, and they're making people lazy, and they're really not allowing them to take decisions. Even if they allow them to take decisions, because there is so much that is bombarded onto them, that most of the time the decision making, they're not sure if they're making the right decision or the wrong decision. I think the most important thing that the older leaders have to think about the younger leaders: please allow them to experiment, allow them to make decisions, allow them to fail, let them fail. So what? How should it make a difference? Because failure teaches them better. It makes them more resilient. And the reason why the depression cases are increasing of late, especially with the youth, because we're not developing the resilience. If the girlfriend loses, if they fail in the exam, if they don't get what they want, they're ready to go and end their lives. And earlier, that wasn't the case. People used to fight for what they want. They used to fight and get what they want. But now they are not ready. If something is not being given to them, they are either getting into substance abuse, or either they are getting into suicidal tendencies, or either they are taking away lives through suicide, which is not right. And where are the things going wrong? We are not allowing the children to develop the resilience. And where does the resilience develop from? Resilience develops from failures. So, and where does the failures come from? Failures comes from when you give the authority to the younger generation to make decisions.
Yeah.
I think that's very important. That's the reason why I was mentioning that the older leaders need to give space to the younger leaders to make the decisions, to experiment, to work out on such that they become more resilient and they don't need to wait for it. Because an older leader doesn't mean that they know everything out of it. I think that is the first concern, well, the first observation that I personally have made it. The second observation probably I have made it is like the older generation are pretty judgmental about the belief systems of the younger generation, are pretty judgmental and pretty biased, because you can't really solve the problem with your old experience looking into the new problem, because the new problem has come from a new situation which was very different from what you have seen earlier during the lifetime. So a decision definitely cannot be taken. All probably you can do as a leader who has wisdom probably can give a suggestion, but don't force upon your decision. And don't be judgmental about it. Don't be judgmental about it, because we right away say, we talk too much. The moment we know that we are the leader with wisdom, we start looking at young leaders in black and white. We either say it's good, it's bad. We don't allow them to understand. But what we fail to understand is 90% of the life exists in shades of gray. It is not black or white. What appears good now is not good tomorrow. What appears bad now is not bad tomorrow. What appears super good is not, it's super good tomorrow, because you start or lose out interest on that, because your ability to achieve that is more important. I get a question often that, why do love marriages fail? Arranged marriages failing is something that I understand, but why do love marriages fail? Because in the love marriages, the interest is more towards acquiring the girl or the boy and owning them. The interest is not to see that they have a compatibility, they can be together, to respect each other. These are not being taken up. There is a beautiful girl, a handsome boy coming in there, and probably has good money, she has good money. They just want to get together. They feel that. So there is an attraction that just happens at that moment. And once the attraction happens, they really want to acquire, they want to own each other. Because once it is owned, the whole idea is lost. Because there's nothing much deeper into it, that I love him or I love her for this reason. Probably we can be together better as a couple, or probably we can have a beautiful life as a couple. This is not being taught. This is something I need her and she's good. And many boys have been behind her. So if I get her, I become the hero. I need her for sure. The same happens with the girl. And I think, and this is where, because the world is looking on at a very superficial level. And I think we need to understand that is the value system that has been developing in the youth of late. And of late, which they are not aware of. I think as older leaders, I think probably if they check to some problem like this, it is important that the older people use their wisdom to give awareness to the younger generation, like what it is done, without being judgmental. Without being judgmental. That is my second observation. I think if we don't have prejudice, if you're not judgmental about what is happening, I think younger generation is more ready to take chances.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, any human being, the biggest poverty in this world is not for food or hunger. The biggest poverty is for self-esteem and sense of worth and love. That's the biggest poverty the world is facing right now. That's a current poverty that's going across. So it's important that each person gets its own deserving sense and dose of self-esteem and sense of worth. So we need to understand as older leaders, like, are we really giving this to the younger generation? Every human survival, that's very important. It's pretty important. So are we really doing that? That is the next thing. The third most important thing is appreciation.
Yeah.
Appreciation. How many of us are really appreciating and recognizing the efforts put up by the old or the new generation? I'm not pertaining this to a particular generation. The appreciation to a core human being for the work that's being done. When the work is done, we take it for granted. I'll give a very small example here. When the lady of the home makes food, nobody thanks them every day. I'm sure about it, irrespective of the culture. They don't say that, oh, we made such a lovely food. Thank you so much for the wonderful food. Probably if there is an occasion, they do show the gratitude, because they take people for granted.
Yeah.
And I think we need to understand that every human being is individual. Every human being has its own needs, and every need is important, because that need is something that builds the human being. So we need to know, we need to understand, we need to be observant if we are very particular, we are specific of what we are doing. I think these are the basic steps that we need to be really focusing on, to see that everybody can stand united and then, be more progressive in that approach.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. That is great points. Great point. We don't need to be we don't need to be prejudiced. We don't need to be judgmental or being biased. And we also need to make sure that we appreciate what they are doing, because sometimes we are expecting too much from we are expecting too much. Because I remember when I was growing up, if you are not first in the class, even if you are second in the class, your parents will still complain. and then they will tell you that the person that got first in the class, does he have another head?
I know, seriously, yes.
Yeah, so that is the first impression. The first impression matters. And that's the first impression. Maybe later on they will say, well, you've tried anyway. But no, the first impression is that, what happened to you getting the first? So that's where we got it. And sometimes, like you said as well, we need to allow them to fail. We need to allow them to make decisions. We need to allow them to make mistakes. And we also need to allow them to fall, because we learn from that. Sometimes we forget ourselves, that all our experiences from our failures, all our falling down, all our mistakes, we've forgotten that. Or maybe we are also overprotective.
Yes, exactly.
Because we've gone through it, we don't want them to go through it. Whereas they have their own lane. They have their own path to tread on. We've done our own and we are still learning. So we need to. And also the good part of it is that if you now bring them onto the table, you'll be able to see what they're doing. And then with love and respect again, we'll be able to correct them.
Absolutely.
And not judgment. Not judging them, but to correct them with love, with meekness, and with respect. Do we respect them? Or we just say, oh no, when do you were born just yesterday? What do you know? You know, all those kind of things. And these children, they know a lot, especially in these times of technology. I mean, sometimes I'm amazed with my younger ones at home. When they say something, I was like, really? Wow. And some of them, if you really grab it, you will learn a lot from them. It's very important. And one of those things as well that I observe, especially sometimes when they involve in drugs, when they involve in killing, gangs, another thing, you will see that only one thing they're looking for: belonging.
Yes.
So they have been neglected, they've been abandoned, and they're looking for somebody that will accept them, somebody that will respect them, somebody that will acknowledge that they exist. And that is why we need to observe that in their lives. And that is why this kind of YYCI International is prepared, is as organized this platform so that old and the young ones can come together. When they see that they're sitting the same table, being in the same platform with the world-class leaders, they will feel, they will feel belonging. In fact, they will know how to comport themselves because they find themselves sharing the same platform, even sharing and expressing themselves in front of great leaders. So that is why we need to, because if we don't bring them to us, they will not learn from us, and we will not learn from them. And it will be like a separation. And believe me, I agree with you. If we're going to meet the sustainable development, it takes two. It takes the old and the young one. In my language, in where I come from in Africa, they say something that old and new, old and the young one built the market. You understand? So
Yes.
that means the old one, they don't know it all. The young ones are still learning, and they also have their own ideas, because we are all human and we have ideas, we have gifts, we have talent. So that is why we need to come together. And that is why you always hear me saying that let's come together to share, to learn, and to grow together so that we can impart into the world. Remember, the next generation are still coming. So the way we prepare ourselves and prepare the new generation, then they will be able to lead us. Remember, it's like a circle. We can do our own in our own age, lead them. But there will be a time where they will also lead us, because they are the leaders. They are even coming in, and then the next generation will also come in. So either we want it or understand that our own time is now, or is existing, is moving on. So their time is also coming in. And that is why we have to prepare them so that they don't lead us astray. So they need to feel the belonging. They need to feel that they're accepted in the society. That is why you can see that majority of the youth are being used for drugs, for so many atrocity out there, because they are lost, and somebody needs to bring them back home. Somebody needs to bring them back to the society. Somebody needs to involve them so that they can learn from us and we can learn from them. They can feel belonging. They can feel secured. They can feel happy. They can, gain self-esteem and build their confidence.
Absolutely.
So I really, really appreciate this, your topic today. And I think you are still coming back for the part 2 of this topic.
Sure,
because
definitely.
we need it. We need it. I need it personally, because I'm a youth mentor. And then the YYCI members and leaders, they need it. And the world need it. So we need to gain insight so that we know what we're doing. Remember, we say that YYCI is about transformation. It's not only just chatting or talking or speaking. We want to experience the transformation. And I want to believe that that should happen in our lives, in our relationship, in our leadership, so that we can make the world better. We are not looking for a solution somewhere else. We are the solution. We are the one to make the change, and we can make the difference. And the only way to do it is for us to gain better knowledge. And that is why I always say that mindset is everything. The information you store, because most of the things you said today, I was like, oh, really? Oh, I need to know more about that. Sometimes you might see it casually, but you might not think it is important. So now you have given us the insight that we need to look at this if we really want to make a change, if we really want to make a place a better place for others, the new generation to come, to feel safe, to feel welcome. I believe that if every youth hear what you are saying, there will be no stabbing, there will be no killing, because that's what they are lost of. They are lost, and unfortunately, they fall into the hands of the abusers, the ones that we abuse them, that we take them for granted. But if we bring them in, we are shielding them, we are protecting them, we are securing them, and that's why we have to work together. So we will continue build our bridges, and we will continue collaborating together, and we will continue learning together, rubbing the wisdom and the energy together.
Absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. And if you still have something to say, please, we want you to type on our chat box, because we are learning in different ways. We want to read, we want to learn, we want to watch, we want to do other things. So if any questions you think we need to get, because I was waiting for more questions, but if you have something to also add to it, please type it on the chat box and let us learn that on as well. So on this note, I want to say thank you on behalf of Yes You Can International, and on behalf of our leaders, our patrons, our matrons, and our members. We want to say thank you so much. And now we can release you to go and have a good rest, because you've woke up as early as 3:30 a.m. from that side, and you've been traveling as well. So health is wealth. So feel free to leave and also to have a good rest. Thank you for your time, and thank you for the great, valuable insight that you have shared with us this afternoon, this morning, this evening, wherever. Thank you, Professor Dr. Kavitha from India. Thank you so much. Okay.